Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Game Education. In this video we're going to have a look at how can we understand chess as an absolute beginner. And I know there are a lot of videos about teaching chess to beginners, but when I watch those videos, the problem I have is that after about 2 or 3 minutes, what seems to happen is the people making the videos go into what I would consider to be intermediate ideas. So by beginner, what I mean is you know how the pieces move, you know what a checkmate is. Ideally, you also know how many points each piece is worth, and that's about it. That's it. That to me is an absolute beginner at chess. And when I've been teaching people how to play chess, people who are absolute beginners, one of the recurring questions that came up quite a lot was, what do I do now? And I think that's an interesting idea, and I think that's a point worth exploring. So that is what this video is about, is if you are an absolute beginner at chess and you want to know what exactly do. I know I move the pieces, I know how they move, but how do I decide which piece to move and when? So I'm going to give you a little checklist, the first 10 moves that we can think about, and just to give you a kind of system so that no matter how many moves you've played, no matter which game you're playing, you feel like you have something to fall back on to keep yourself going. You're never going to feel like, I have no idea what to do. You're going to say, okay, let me check. Okay, I need to do this and I need to do this, and so I can probably just do this. And it just gives you some kind of structure to help you with playing chess. It gives you a stronger foundation. Now I'm going to be playing against Martin. He is the lowest rated bot on chess.com. So he's not very good at chess, but all the bots on chess.com still use stockfish, so they can from time to time actually play really well, even being only rated 250. So what I'm going to do is go through the first 10 moves, go through a simple checklist, and then we are going to use those two things against Martin, and only those two things. I'm not going to use any tactics, I'm not going to look for anything fancy. I'm just going to demonstrate that we can play chess reasonably well in a very simple way. So with that being said, let's have a look at the first 10 moves first. I like to think of it like this, and if you have already played chess or studied chess a bit, or if you're quite good at chess, then you might disagree with some of these things. And the point isn't that these will win you every game. The point is that this is a foundation for absolute beginners to have something to rely on and to build upon. This is the starting point. Gives you something rather than nothing. So, first 10 moves: center pawns, knights, bishops, castle, queen, rook. That's it. And you might say, well, that's only 6, but 1, 2, and 3 have an S because there are 2 of them. Quick maths, and that does make 10. And then the checklist that we are going to follow for every move is, are any of my pieces under attack? Yes? Then defend them. Are there any pieces I can take? Are they defended? No? Take them. That's it. Simples. So let's let's have a quick go against our dear friend Martin here. So let's play the center pawns to begin with. Okay, he plays out his knight, and so let's have a look at the checklist. Are any of my pieces under attack? Yes, they are actually. This knight is attacking our pawn here. Okay, fine. How can I defend this pawn? And actually there are a few different moves that we can use here. But one of the things I'm going to make a point of during this video is that if at any time we can merge the first 10 moves and the checklist, then that is going to be ideal. So can we defend this pawn while also moving a center pawn? Yes, we can. Can we defend this pawn while moving a knight, maybe? Yes, we can. We can also do that. So let's do that. This is going to make it easier for us. So let's put this knight here. Okay. Martin plays his own knight. Does this attack anything? No. Okay. Don't need to think about anything. Have we played both of our center pawns? No. So maybe that's what we should do next. Okay. Does this pawn attack anything? No. Are any of my pieces under attack? Well, this knight attacks this pawn, but the queen already defends it, so that's fine. And this knight attacks this pawn, but this knight defends it, so again, that is fine. And the reason I want to go over this kind of checklist every single move is chess is a complex game. You know, it can be really difficult to keep track of everything in a casual, unfocused way. But when we give ourselves a checklist to check every single time, every single piece, you know, we can still make mistakes with that, but it is much more effective, much more efficient. And we're going to make far fewer mistakes by being methodical about it. So two of my pieces are under attack, this pawn and this pawn, but they are both defended. I can continue with my first 10 moves. We have done 2 center pawns, 1 knight, so let's do the second knight. Okay, Martin plays a pawn. Does this attack anything? Yes, it attacks my pawn. Is my pawn defended? The knight defends it and the queen defends it. The pawn attacks it and the knight attacks it as well. So we have 2 and 2. Now, can I attack anything? Can I attack this pawn? Is this pawn defended? Well, this knight does not defend it. Does this knight defend it? Yes. Do I have any other pieces that also attack this pawn? We have the pawn here, which is attacking it, but also this knight is attacking this pawn. So if we have 2 attackers and our opponent has only 1 defender, then actually we are winning that exchange. So let's just take this pawn. Okay, Martin has now moved his knight. Is this attacking anything? Let's see. Yes. Yes. And yes. So, so we have 1, 2, 3 squares, 3 pawns that this knight is now attacking. Is the h-pawn defended? Yes. Defended by the rook, also defended by the knight here. Is this pawn defended? Yes, the king defends it. Is this pawn defended by the knight, yes, and attacked by this knight. One attacker, one defender, that's fine. We don't need to think about it anymore. But is it only one attacker? No, two attackers now. Because the knight moved, now we have both knights attacking the same pawn. So, can I defend this pawn? Can I move a piece so that it also defends this pawn? Could I move a bishop, which is on our first 10 moves checklist, to defend this pawn? I could. I have this bishop here, and it can move here to defend this pawn. We can do two things in one move. We can move the bishop, which is on our first 10 moves checklist, and we can defend one of our pawns, which is also on our checklist. Now, I'm not saying this is the best move, but again, I'm going to reiterate this. This is just trying to keep things very simple, and to prove that even playing in a very simple way, if it's a strong foundation of chess, if it's a strong foundation of chess, it still works to a degree. So let's just move the bishop here and defend this pawn. Okay? Martin has added a third attacker to this pawn. So should we add another defender to this? Would that be a good idea? It's starting to build up and up and up. What if we just make all of this go away by attacking this pawn? We would take a pawn, and our opponent would take back, because this pawn is defended in multiple ways. But then the issue is resolved. We don't have to keep making it more and more complex. So why don't we just take it? Martin decides that he doesn't want to take this pawn. Instead, he moves his pawn forward. Does this pawn attack anything? Yes, it does. It attacks our bishop. And in this case, with the points difference between the bishop at 3 points and the pawn at 1 point, just defending the bishop is not the right kind of thing to do here. So we have to move the bishop away. That is basically the only option we have now. Where can we move the bishop to? We have a few different options here, which would be, when we have to make a decision like this, I think often the best option to think about is, where can I move this piece where in the future it will have the most options? And so for that, I would say probably this square or this square would be nice, because compared to this square here, the bishop on this square has one square to move there and some squares to move here. However, on this square, the bishop has more options of where it can move to, and after moving again, then more options again. So I might try this square, but before I move it, it's prudent to ask, is this square attacked by anything? And the answer is yes. I mean, I'm asking because I know it is. This knight is attacking this square. And we do have defense in the form of our pawn here. But it's easier if we can just move the bishop back to a square where it won't just be attacked again. So let's just move the bishop back. Okay, Martin has played his pawn again. Does this pawn attack anything? No, it just defends this knight. So what is the next thing on our list? I mean, I can see some fun ideas and moves here, and I have to really limit myself to just following these simple principles and this simple checklist, and not trying to play any fancy chess and no tactics, nothing like that, because I'm trying to prove a point here. Trying to help the beginners, and I think playing the fancy moves, while it looks cool, it's not helping in the way that this is intended to help. So, you know, it's enjoyable for me and not helpful for you. So I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to follow what I've said I'm going to do. So are any of my pieces under attack? Yes, the queen is attacking this pawn. This knight is also attacking this pawn backwards. This knight is still attacking these pawns down here, but we know they are still defended. This knight is not actually attacking anything, and the same for this bishop, it's not attacking anything yet. So we have one piece under attack, and it's under attack from the enemy queen. Is there a way to defend this piece? And I would like to follow the checklist, and the next thing would be the second bishop, but the second bishop is on light squares and cannot defend this pawn. So I can't use both sides together, unfortunately, at this point, but I think maybe there might be a way to defend this, an interesting way. And that interesting way is when we go through the checklist and we say, okay, there's something that needs to be defended, it's still very useful sometimes to think, is there anything I can attack? Because sometimes the defense and the attack can become the same thing. And the point I'm trying to make here is that this bishop can attack this pawn. And this pawn is not defended by anything, not defended by the bishop, not defended by the rook, not defended by the queen because our pawn is in the way, not defended by this knight in any way. So this is a free pawn. We can just take it for free. And by taking with the bishop, our bishop will then defend this pawn, which is under attack. So we do actually get to do two things at once, which is fantastic. You know, again, with the checklist and the first 10 moves, if you can do both, probably that's a great idea. But the same applies for attacking and defending. If you can attack and defend at the same time, or vice versa, then that is also usually quite a strong move. So let's play it. Kapow. Martin moves his rook, which is blocked in by his pawns. It cannot do anything, so we don't really need to check what is this going to attack, because it can't attack anything. However, every move, it is very, very, I'm not going to say important, but it's very, very helpful to still go through your checklist. And it's not even in a try hard kind of way. It's in the way where this will train your mind to do it automatically. So we're just doing the very manual labor kind of repeat, you know, do it again and again and again. But eventually this kind of checklist just becomes a natural thing for your brain to do, and you don't have to think about it anymore eventually. I think there is kind of a little bit of a meme about this though, which I think is kind of funny. It looks like this. Babe, it's your move. Time to check every single piece again. Yes, honey. And while that is funny, it is also kind of true. Like, that is really going to do wonders for you in chess. It's just checking your pieces, both in defense and attack, every time. So, back to the actual game. This knight attacks this, and here, and here, and here. This pawn is attacked by the queen, is attacked by the knight. Two attackers, and we only have one defender. So actually this is still something of an issue, you might say. There is a really nice tactic here, and I would love to play it, but I'm not going to. And the game evaluation will hate me for not playing it, but we're just going to keep it simple. Can we defend this pawn more? I think we can if we have a look at the options available to us. If we moved the queen to this square, it would defend the pawn. However, this knight is also defending this square. Actually, it just means we would lose our queen. Not a great way to play chess. We could perhaps move the knight to here, and that would defend this square. Okay, that could be a good option. That might be nice. We could move this pawn forwards, and it would then defend the pawn as well. I'm not sure about that move, because this knight, let's see, this knight already attacks this square, and so does this knight. And we have one defender of this square, which means actually if we put the pawn there, that's a losing move. We move a pawn, or we move any piece onto a square where our opponent has more attackers than we have defenders, then that's just a bad move, because your opponent will take, you can take back, but your opponent can take back more than you can, and in the end you lose. So while the pawn move looks like it could defend, actually it doesn't really work. I think the knight move could work though, so why don't we let's try the knight move. Ka-ching. Okay, the rook comes down. What can this rook do? Does it attack anything? No, but at least we checked. So what's the next thing for us then? We've had the same attackers on the board for a long time now. What do I do now? Right? That's the question we want to answer here. And we're just going back to the checklist. We've done the center pawns, we've done the knights, we've danced around trying to defend our pieces, and now we're back to okay, it's I need to have something to do. So we did pawns, we did knights, we did one bishop. We can move the second bishop. So where can we move the bishop? I didn't draw the arrow to here because I mean it must go here. I just mean these are our options. This square is not an option because pawn takes, just loses the bishop. Not great. And to be honest, all of these squares I think would be fine. It's not a huge deal. I think I'm just going to choose this one, just at random. Okay, Martin moves his knight. Now we check. What does this attack? Attacks here, 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 here. Attacks quite a lot of squares, yeah. So it's attacking our knight. Our knight is defended by the pawn. Okay, cool, wonderful. Attacks this pawn here, which is defended by the queen. Great. Attacks this pawn, which is defended by the rook. Wonderful, everything's looking great. So if everything is defended, then is there anything I can attack? Let's have a look at everything. So the pawn attacks here, nothing. The bishop attacks here and here, nothing. This knight attacks 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 squares. A lot of options there, one of which is this knight. Is this knight defended? Let's have a look. None of the pawns defended. That rook certainly doesn't defend it, but that queen, sorry, queen? It doesn't look like a queen. That bishop does defend it. So we can take this knight, but we know that the best move from black would be to just take back. It's even Stevens. If we don't take it, then the knight might take our knight, and our pawn would defend against that. So okay, fine. I think ultimately we don't really need to do something about that right now. It's not pressuring us. So let's just have a look at the checklist, and the next thing is castle. So let's drag the king over the rook, and there we go. Okay, so Martin plays his pawn down to b5. Does this attack anything? No. Not really anything to think about then. Is there anything I can attack? Anything further I can attack? I don't really think anything has changed here, but this bishop attacks the pawn, but also the rook defends it. So one attacker, one defender, evens. Okay, we don't need to do anything about it now, but it's always worthwhile to check. What's the next thing? Queen. So our queen, having just this open file here, actually really only has 3 squares that it can move to. So when we're thinking about which one is going to suit us the most, we can think about, okay, moving to each square, let's say this one, what does it then give me? And so we can see from here the queen would be able to attack the knight, would be able to move along this line here, and of course would still have movement along the vertical line. So we're able to add another attacker to this knight, giving us 2 attackers versus the 1 defender. Okay, so then black probably has to do something about that. What about this square? Maybe not the best choice, because this knight is attacking these squares, and so we would just lose the queen there. Not great. What about this square? What does this let the queen do? So again, it also lets the queen attack the knight here. It also lets the queen attack this pawn. It lets the queen move to this square, which is defended by the knight. Don't really want to do that, but we know this knight has 1 defender. Sorry, too many arrows. This knight has 1 defender. How about this pawn? Is this pawn defended by anything? Not by the rook, and not by the bishop. So actually this pawn has no defender. So maybe moving the queen to this square allows us to attack 2 things at once. And I don't think black can make 2 moves at once. Well, you can't in most cases. So maybe this is a good option for us. Let's try it. Let's move the queen here. Martin has moved his king. Okay. Is the king attacking anything? Yes, the king attacks all the squares around it. So including this pawn. This pawn is defended by the knight, by the bishop, and by the queen. So I don't think we really need to worry about this bishop, this pawn right now. The pawn that wishes it was a bishop. Is that a tongue twister? So we can go back to thinking about our attacking options. We have the option here not to take with the queen because the bishop would take back, or this pawn here. sorry, I don't want to draw that line. What I mean is the knight could attack first, or we could just take the pawn for free. Which one do I think is better? I actually think attacking the I do like the chances with attacking the pawn, but the king is just so close, that moving the queen over here kind of diminishes the queen's attacking chances on the king. And so then, you know, in terms of ending the game and winning the game, which is checkmate, I think although it's winning a pawn, you know, we would be winning a pawn for free, I think in some ways it diminishes the actual checkmate opportunities that we kind of have going on here. So what are the options here? Maybe instead we can just try and take this instead. We would take with the knight. The bishop could take back. So we take a knight, we lose a knight, but then the queen would take the bishop. And we take a knight, lose a knight, but then we also take a bishop. So we take two but only lose one. I think that's a pretty nice option here, so we should do that. Let's take that knight. And black has taken back, and we can take back again. Okay. Does this attack anything? Yes, it does. Let's see. What should we do with this? Is this pawn defended? Yes, the queen defends it. Is this pawn, the opponent's pawn, defended? The queen also defends this pawn. So our queen defends our pawn, and black's queen defends their pawn. Okay, that seems kind of even. So why don't we just have a look at the checklist? We did the two center pawns, we did the two knights, we did the two bishops, we castled, we moved the queen. Last one is the rook. The rook sitting over here in the corner is not really doing much. And so we have four squares here where we could move the rook, but in terms of choosing the best place, what we need to think about is where will the rook be able to move after we move it to one of these squares. So this square blocks off his movement. This pawn also blocks off the movement. This bishop and this pawn also kind of block off the movement. Maybe not for the entire game, but for right now, yes. But this square allows us to also attack this pawn, and in a sense, in an even nicer way, if this pawn moves, then the rook actually is able to attack the queen. So out of these four squares we have here, one of them is clearly better than the rest. So that is where we are going to put this rook. Okay, so the pawn has been pushed forwards. Interesting, very interesting. Is this pawn attacking anything? No. Shall we do a review of all the opponent's pieces and what they could be attacking? This bishop is not, that's not how bishops move. This bishop is not attacking anything. Great. The queen is attacking the pawn, but we have a defender. But there's a second attacker here. So this is actually maybe, this is a mistake we've made here by not checking sooner. this would be losing for us. Sorry, there seems to be a lot of arrows here. We have one defender for this pawn, but black has two attackers. That means black is winning that kind of engagement there. And because we didn't check it, that's why it's still going on, of course. Fortunately, we are playing against Martin. Martin doesn't take such incredible advantage when we give it to him. But this is still kind of a mistake that we've done here because we didn't check. We're still winning. It's not a huge issue. It's only one pawn, but in terms of improving how we play at chess and playing solid chess, keeping an eye on these things and, you know, checking and checking again is what allows us to be a better player than others. So maybe this is something that we need to think about here. Is there a way to defend this pawn? What options do we have here? So we have still this pawn here, which can move and can then defend this pawn. The problem we had before was that there was a knight here, which would attack this square along with this knight, and that would just be a bad position for us. But this knight has gone now, so I think in reality, it's all in reality. I think actually moving this pawn here now to defend this pawn works, because this knight can attack. This knight can attack, but this knight also defends. 1 for 1, don't need to think about it. So let's do that. We have a piece under attack, we can defend it, let's defend it. Okay, queen has moved. I mean, you know what the meme is, right? Yeah, you know it, time to check every single piece again. So let's see, this queen now, okay, defends this pawn, defends this pawn, defends this knight, doesn't seem to be attacking anything. So what's for us to do? Is anything of ours under attack? We defended this pawn because it was under attack, and I don't believe anything else is under attack right now. So we've checked the defense, we can have a look at the attack. What can we attack? Let's check everything. Let's see. So we have a bishop attacking this pawn, and that's defended by the rook, but also attacked by the queen. 2 to 1. No. Queen defends too. 2 to 2. Okay. Even, we can leave it alone. What about this rook? Attacks this pawn. Any defenders? Yes, queen defends. But queen also attacks. Any other defenders? Rook? No. Bishop? No. Knight? No. 2 attackers, 1 defender. That means we can do it. So, let's do it. Queen moves away, because now the rook is also attacking the queen here. Queen has moved away. Does it attack anything? Yes, now attacking this pawn along with the knight. So we are back to a similar situation again. We have our pawn here, the knight attacks it, the queen attacks it. Is there a way for us to now defend this pawn? What can we do about this? What options do we have? Well, we could perhaps move the rook here, and that would defend the pawn. We could perhaps move the rook here, and that would also defend the pawn. we maybe could move the bishop here, and that would defend the pawn. We could move the queen here, and that would also defend the pawn. We actually have a lot of options here for defending the pawn, so this really is coming more into your own strategy or your own ideas of what you want to achieve on a game-by-game basis. So all of these pieces achieve the same thing, which is defending this pawn. But which one we choose, affects how the game plays out later. I think all of them can work to a degree. I think for me, I'd like to choose maybe this one. I'll choose this one. Let's see how this goes. And the queen has moved again. Okay, fine. Is this queen attacking anything? No, not at all. None of our pieces are under attack. Are there any pieces that we can attack? Let's have a look. Bishop cannot attack anything. The knight is defending. The rook can attack the knight. In this case, though, the rook being worth 5 points and the knight being worth 3 points, it's not really in our best interest to engage in this one. The queen is not attacking anything on the diagonals, but is attacking this pawn. This pawn is defended and defended, so we're not going to do that. So then, again, we're back to this question, the whole point of the video. What do I do now? And I think there's one other thing that we could perhaps add in to the first 10 moves. And instead of just saying 6 rook, we could just say rooks, because we do have more than one. And this rook here is just kind of sitting there and not contributing. So let's bring it to the party. And again, this line here, the D file is called, is looking really quite useful. The queen is attacking this file and is attacking this square. Careful. But the bishop also defends it. So while the queen could take our rook, our bishop would take back, and actually that is losing for black because a queen is worth much more than a rook. So let's bring our friend out. And the queen moves away again. D7 E8, D7 E8. Martin's just making the queen dance. Okay, so we know we're back to this same situation with the pawn, which is amply defended, and so we've got to think again, what do I do now? And while we are very much winning, in chess it can be incredibly easy to throw the game away, even if you are winning very, very heavily. And so the next stage really is we have to take the initiative. And by that I mean we have to look at the board, look at the different pieces, and try to, let's say, analyze each of your opponent's pieces and think, which one is the easiest to attack? Which one can I attack the easiest? And oftentimes the easiest one to attack is the one that is the closest to your side of the board. In this case, that would be this knight. This knight is here, is the closest, and our bishop is attacking it through our knight, but we would have to move our knight to achieve that. The knight is defended by this pawn, and we could perhaps move this pawn to then attack the knight. That could be a nice way. That is going to maybe cause some issue here with the rook coming down this open file. But I think for the moment we're probably fine. Probably fine. So let's see what happens here. Let's move our pawn. The knight runs away. Now we need to check, is the knight attacking anything? This square, this square, this square, this square. And this is why keeping your knight in the center of the board makes it so much stronger than keeping it at the side. Because we see here now it's only affecting 4 squares, where typically if it's in the center it can affect 8. So it's at 50% efficacy in some kind of measurement, if you'd like to think about it that way. But the knight isn't attacking anything. So what can we do now? We've attacked the knight and it ran away. We can still attack the knight again with the bishop, but the knight is defended by the rook. So are there any more pieces we can find that look like they might be easy to attack? Let's see, we've got this pawn is close and this pawn is close. Is there a way to attack this pawn over here? Because this pawn actually has no defenders. The knight isn't defending it unless it moves. The rook also cannot defend it. So what if we were to try and find a way to attack this pawn? What could we do? We could perhaps move our pawn here. This pawn could take, and then we would take back. I don't really like that because we are, these pawns here kind of make our king's castle. I don't mean the move castling, I mean like this is his keep, his fortress. These defend him from checks and from being put into a bad position. So moving these pawns too much, a lot of the time is not really so great. What if we moved this rook over here? And then it could attack the pawn. That does mean that it stops attacking this pawn. Attacking? Defending. The queen attacks, but the knight defends. So black has 1 attacker, we have 2 defenders. We can actually move 1 defender away if we want. It's not going to change anything for us. So that would be fine, we could do that. The bishop here could attack it if this knight was not in the way. Which squares could this knight move to? And which one would be the most useful for us? Now, I was saying just a minute or two ago that knights are much more effective in the center. So then I would say this square would maybe be more useful rather than less useful. And is there any other piece we can use to attack this? I don't think so. I don't see anything else. So then we have the choice between moving the rook or moving the knight. I think maybe moving the knight is a nicer option. Let's try it. Let's move the knight over here. Interesting. So now Martin's bishop is attacking our rook. And bishops being worth 3 points, rooks being worth 5 points, this is a strong attack. We kind of need to move the rook out of the way. But the rook at the moment is defending this pawn from the queen. We could move the rook here and in that way attack the bishop, but the bishop is defended by the knight here. And by moving the rook here, this pawn then has no defenders. Oh no. So maybe that's not the best option. Is there a way to move the rook away from this not that diagonal, away from this diagonal without losing the defense of this pawn? Yes, we could actually just move here. That would be fine. But there is, I think, another interesting option here. Going back to thinking about not just defense but also attack, because sometimes and when you talk a lot, it really gets to your throat. So we shouldn't get too bogged down in only ever thinking about defense, and in finding a good defensive move we then just play it, because then we would never find the moves where we can defend and attack at the same time, and those tend to be really, really nice moves. I think there is a nice attacking move here. If we just go through what the pieces are where they can attack, the queen can't attack anything here. The pawn, which is defended. Okay, fine. The knight, which can attack the bishop, but the bishop is defended by the knight as well, so 1 for 1. But it does resolve this issue we have with the bishop attacking the rook. So that's something to think about, definitely. The knight also attacks these two squares, can move down here, and this pawn here, which is, okay, this pawn again is still defended by the rook and is also defended by the queen. 2 for 2 is 0, so nothing to do there. The rook at the moment is blocked by the knight, and this bishop can attack both of these pawns. Now this is why checking every piece can make your chess so much better, because what we can see here is that actually we have three attackers on this pawn, and it only has 2 defenders. But being able to take a pawn and then lose a rook is not really a great option. The other option we have here, attacking this pawn, is that this pawn is not defended, and taking with the bishop here means that it's also check on the king, and there's nothing defending this pawn, so the king has to move away, right? Has to move away. After the king moves away, that bishop will be able to attack the queen. Ooh, very, very strong move. Wonderful. Attack and is check. King has to move and you win the queen. And sometimes the only way to find these kinds of moves is to methodically go through everything, because even for me, after playing for 2 years, and especially when making videos, you have to think about everything you're saying. It's really easy to miss things, to miss details. Maybe you've had a long day at work or other things like that. We're all human. So being methodical, following the checklist, being diligent and disciplined with this can find you some amazing moves. So let's play this amazing move. King has to move, and that is a queen. Ka-ching. And as if taking the queen wasn't enough, Martin then offers his rook up with a take that would again be check. This time would be able to take back with the knight. And we have to remember not to forget about this thing here. This is still dangerous. This is still happening. Just because we're having fun and taking the queen and getting checks and Martin is playing not so wonderfully, still have to keep an eye on everything that's happening on the board. However, because this move with the bishop is going to be a check, that means black has to respond to it, and we will still have another turn to be able to move this rook out of the way. So let's just do that. Let's take there, takes back with the knight. This is interesting now actually, because this knight now attacks both this pawn and the bishop, and the bishop here is attacking our rook. So now we have 3 pieces under attack. Oh no, oh dear. What should we do? We have to make a decision. We have to decide which is more important to us. And in this case, the piece that has the higher value is going to be the choice you make most of the time. And that's going to be our rook. So we could move the rook away somewhere, or if we have the option to just take away the attacker, that's also a solid choice. In this case, I think we should just take the attacker away. Off he goes, and Martin did not even want to take this bishop. He is programmed to make mistakes, and sometimes he makes more mistakes than other times. So what is going on now here? There's nothing immediately under attack for us to defend. Actually, Martin only has 5 pieces left. So this now becomes a stage where we could probably achieve checkmate reasonably easily. And so to do that, one of the stronger pieces, or strongest piece, is the queen. And we just want to think, how can we move the queen closer to the king, ideally? The closer we get, the easier the checkmate is going to be. Our queen is over here, and I think the closest we can get to the king is here, without being taken, because this would just be defended by the rook and the king. So let's move the queen here, getting closer and closer. Martin brings his knight back to where it was. Okay. Can we move the queen closer? Can we take this knight? No, because the king would take back, and we don't have anything supporting that. Nothing we can do there. So what should we do? Bring another piece closer to the king. The second strongest piece we have are our rooks, and the one that we can bring closest, I think we have 2 options. We can bring one rook over here if we like, or even here, 2 options, and we'll then be able to target the king this way. Or we could move this rook maybe to here, but that has 2 defenders, not the best choice. Maybe we could bring the rook here and we attack this way. I think both ways would work, especially when we have such an overwhelming advantage. But I think I like this one more. Okay, yeah, that is the right way to defend. Martin playing like he doesn't know how to play chess for the entirety of the game until it gets to the checkmating stage, and then suddenly he knows every single defensive move absolutely correctly. That's the way the bots work. Okay, so what is another piece we can bring to attack here? We could actually, I think, give a check to the king with our knight here. The pawn attacks this square, so it's blocked off. The king would have to move here or here. Does that do anything for me? I don't really think so. I don't think so. It doesn't look like it's doing much for me, to be honest. So maybe we should just bring another piece closer. Yeah, could be nice. Or, looking at the bigger picture, this knight is in the way, and this knight is defended by the rook. If we can find a way to move either of these, then that is going to be one step closer to checkmate. So which pieces can we move to attack either of these? We already know that this square is defended by both of them. So it's 2, 4, 2, 0. We could move this knight here to attack the knight, but that square is defended by the pawn. Doesn't really work. We could move the knight here to attack the knight, and it would also be check. The king would have to move. We could even just push this pawn, which would then attack the knight. I think I kind of like that option. Let's give it a try, shall we? Let's say, move out of the way, please. And he moves the rook away. Okay, so the rook, which was here, is not defending this knight anymore. We have 1, 2, and even 3 attackers onto this square, so we can quite safely take this now with check. The king has to move away, and now we can just move the queen here, which would be check, and king can not go anywhere. We win. Great game. Wonderful. No fancy tactics. Maybe there was a little bit of a tactic with the bishop and the check and the taking the queen, but that only happened naturally from following the principles anyway. There was a free pawn to take there, and so we took it. The tactic came as a result of that. I think that's fine. And we see, you know, it's taken 31 moves to reach checkmate. And for every move we have had to think and check and carefully look at every single thing. But we have won with an overwhelming advantage. And if you follow this checklist, if you follow these principles and you follow them carefully, and you play against someone at the same level as you who doesn't follow them, you should win, I think, in a similarly overwhelming way. And if you do, tell me about it. I'd love to hear about it. But that's going to be it from me. So let's deliver this checkmate here. Ka-ching. We beat Martin. Wonderful. And there we go. I think ideally that does prove it. Game Review says we made one mistake. That's it. Even playing in a very, very simple way, we have only made one mistake. And we won. We won in an overwhelming way. So I hope that helps you if you're wanting to get into chess and you are asking this question of what do I do now? Think about this. Think about this checklist and the moves and attacking and defending and trying to combine both of them together to get the best results when you can. Otherwise, that's it from me. That's it for this video. So thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time.